The people living in the small town of Minco, Oklahoma, have no idea that a massive tornado is heading their way. It's the biggest tornado ever seen, and it's going to bring destruction and danger. In the middle of all this, 4 different families are dealing with their own personal struggles. The question is, will the storm tear them further apart or bring them closer together as they try to survive? The movie starts with Tammy standing outside her house during a thunderstorm. She watches the sky, amazed by the bright flashes of lightning. Suddenly, one lightning bolt hits her barn and it catches fire. Tammy screams for her husband Ricky and their son Luke. The scene shifts to Ricky, who quickly runs to Luke's room to get him out. But Luke is gone. With no time to waste, Ricky runs outside to put out the fire on his own, while Tammy stands there, frozen with fear. In another part of town, a teenage girl named Maddie is feeling upset. Late at night, she texts her boyfriend asking, "How do you know this is right?" The next morning, she looks worried while eating breakfast. Her mom notices and asks if something's wrong. Maddie says she's going to meet someone but doesn't say more. We find out that Maddie is going to a pregnancy clinic. There, the nurse turns out to be Tammy, the same woman from earlier. Tammy is kind at first, but soon starts asking Maddie personal questions. She talks about how special it is to have a baby and says it's one of the greatest things in life. Maddie starts to feel uncomfortable. She then explains that she's actually at the clinic for an abortion. Tammy is surprised. She tells Maddie, "Why don't you get married instead?" The comment makes Maddie feel even more nervous and confused. Overwhelmed by the situation, she grabs her things and runs out of the clinic in a panic. While driving, Maddie meets up with her boyfriend Eric. She brings up the idea of getting married, hoping for a serious commitment, but Eric hesitates and doesn't give her a clear answer. When Maddie directly asks if he truly loves her, Eric only says that he loves being around her. Hurt and disappointed by his vague response, Maddie pushes him away and drives off, feeling confused and frustrated. She then heads to the salon where she works. Later that day, while helping her mother dye her hair, Maddie opens up and reveals that she's pregnant. This leads to an emotional conversation between the two as her mother tries to support her. Suddenly, Maddie gets a call from Kim, a regional disaster manager who's also a close friend or acquaintance. Kim asks Maddie for a big favor, to pick up her deaf daughter Peyton from school because she's too busy with her emergency duties. Maddie agrees to help. However, Kim doesn't tell her how dangerous the storm really is. She keeps the details vague, possibly to avoid panic or maybe because she's overwhelmed. But in doing so, Kim unintentionally puts both Maddie and Peyton at greater risk. Even though she's working to protect others, Kim may have failed her own daughter by not clearly warning Maddie just how serious the storm was. At another house nearby, we shift to an older couple starting their day. Anna, a hardworking Latina woman, wakes up her partner, Carlos. The mood is tense as she tells him she's planning to buy a small house. Carlos seems surprised. She never discussed it with him. When he asks how she plans to pay for it, Anna confidently replies that she'll take on more work, doing overtime during the week and even working extra on weekends. Before Carlos leaves for his job, Anna hands him a CD with English lessons. Carlos doesn't speak English, and she's hoping he'll learn, especially since he struggles to communicate at work. She hugs him goodbye as he heads out. But there's a deeper problem. Carlos is undocumented, and the job he's going to doesn't provide any support or translation. He can't understand his boss or coworkers, which puts him in a dangerous and vulnerable position every single day. Meanwhile, Anna works at a motel where her manager is cold and dismissive toward her. She tries to stay focused, but tension is rising all around her. At the same motel, a gay couple is in the middle of a heated argument. One of them, Daniel, storms out of the room angrily and accidentally bumps into Anna in the hallway. She recognizes him and asks why he's staying at the motel, but Daniel doesn't respond. He hurries off, unaware that he's knocked the "Do Not Disturb" sign off the door handle. Later that day, Anna returns to clean the room, thinking it's empty. But when she opens the door, she's shocked to find a young man, Luke, Tammy's son, half naked on the bed. Embarrassed and startled, Anna quickly backs out, while Luke angrily shouts for her to leave. The whole situation leaves Anna rattled and uneasy. In this part of the story, we get the sense that Luke is feeling upset because Daniel, his partner, is pressuring him to come out as gay. But Luke is scared to tell his very traditional and conservative parents the truth about himself. Around noon, Anna secretly takes the motel manager's van and drives to a salon, where a real estate agent is waiting for her. At the salon, she meets Maddie, who works there as a hairdresser. Anna signs the papers for the house she wants to buy, then rushes off to the bank to get the money she needs. Meanwhile, we see Luke again. This time, he's out in the fields with his dad, Rick, who is angry with him for hiring someone who doesn't even speak English. That person turns out to be Carlos. It's a surprise for both Luke and Carlos to meet each other like this. Their situation is complicated. Carlos is an undocumented immigrant who doesn't speak English well, and now he's working in the fields like a farmhand. Even though he's actually a trained mechanic, he's completely out of place, unsure of where he belongs or how to fix his situation. Now focusing on Luke, it's clear he doesn't really care about working on the farm. He's only doing it because his parents are pressuring him to follow in their footsteps without really asking what he wants. He feels trapped, stuck living a life that doesn't feel like his own. Later, there's some chaos on the farm, and Rick's plowing machine suddenly breaks down. Not wanting to spend a lot of money hiring a professional, Rick remembers Carlos saying he's a mechanic, so he turns to Carlos for help. Carlos agrees to take a look, but he tells Rick that he needs specific parts to fix the machine. Instead of going himself, Rick hands Carlos a map with directions and sends him off to get the parts, trusting that Carlos can handle it on his own. As each character deals with their own personal struggles, the storm continues to grow quietly but dangerously in the background. Carlos, still trying to help Rick, drives to the repair shop to pick up the parts he needs. But once he arrives, he struggles to talk to the cashier because he doesn't speak English. The communication is awkward and slow, making the task harder than it should be. Back in the car, Carlos turns on the radio, but the storm alerts being broadcast are in English, and he can't understand them. Hoping to make use of the drive, he puts in his English tutorial DVD, which ends up muting the voice of the radio reporter, silencing the warning that he's driving straight into a dangerous storm. As he continues on the road, the weather quickly turns ugly. Heavy rain pours down, making it nearly impossible for him to see. And then, things get worse. Giant chunks of hail begin smashing against his windshield. A full-blown hailstorm hits, and it's only a preview of what's coming. Back in town, the storm sirens begin to wail. People are panicking. They only have 13 minutes to find shelter before the tornado arrives. Meanwhile, the camera cuts to Anna at the motel. She finally realizes how serious the situation is and quickly starts helping the motel guests evacuate, trying to guide them all to safety before it's too late. Back at the farm, Luke finally gathers the courage to tell his strict, conservative parents that he's gay. But the timing couldn't be worse. The storm is nearly here. As the wind picks up and the sky grows darker, Luke begs his parents to go down into the storm cellar, but they refuse to listen. Luckily, Luke is able to get the rest of the workers to safety, including Daniel, his partner. But things aren't going as well for Maddie and Carlos. After finishing her shift at the salon, Maddie picks up Peyton and takes her home safely. However, Eric shows up at her house and they get into a heated argument. During the fight, Maddie is shocked to find out that Eric already has a wife and 2 other children. The argument becomes so intense that Maddie loses focus. While they're arguing, Maddie doesn't hear the tornado warning siren, and she doesn't notice that Peyton has wandered outside. Thinking Maddie is out there, the deaf child steps into the yard, just as the massive storm comes roaring toward the town. Just before the tornado hits, Maddie grabs her, but it's too late. They get caught in the strong winds and flying debris. Maddie ends up with deep cuts and injuries. Carlos also gets hurt. The wind lifts his car while he's still inside. When he wakes up, his hands are stuck to the car's roof. The tornado destroys the town. Homes are torn apart. Lives are changed forever. So what happens to everyone after the storm? Luke and the others come out of the storm shelter. He's relieved to see that his mom is alive, but she's in a daze. Then they find Ricky lying still on the ground. They panic and try to wake him up. Luckily, they hear his heartbeat. He's alive, just unconscious. Maddie's mom searches through the wreckage and finally finds Maddie badly hurt under the debris. She quickly gets her into an emergency vehicle so she can start recovering. Eric shows up and finds Maddie, but she finally makes the decision to leave him for good. A little later, Kim passes by and sees Maddie sitting in an emergency vehicle. When she notices the cuts on Maddie's face, she panics and immediately asks where Peyton is. Maddie's mom apologizes and says she tried her best to find Peyton, but couldn't. Kim rushes to the place where her house once stood, shouting Peyton's name again and again. After a few tense minutes, she finally hears Peyton screaming, "Mama!" They find each other and share an emotional reunion. At the same time, Anna spots Carlos in the crowd. She's shocked to see the skin on his head badly damaged. A nurse hands Anna a form to fill out for him, but she pauses, torn about revealing that Carlos is an undocumented immigrant. Carlos begs her not to go through with it, scared that getting treatment could risk everything. But Anna tells him that her life is with him, no matter what. In that moment, she realizes that her love for Carlos matters more than her personal goals. Not everyone gets a happy ending, but if this movie teaches us anything, it's to truly value what we have, right here, right now, because everything can change in an instant. A single moment, a sudden disaster can take it all away. Now, watching this movie can feel a bit overwhelming. That's partly because you're introduced to a lot of main characters all at once. Their lives are deeply connected, and while that adds a layer of depth and wonder, it can also be a little hard to follow at first. Overall, it's a decent film, especially if you enjoy suspenseful stories where people struggle to survive against nature's fury. If you're into disaster dramas, this one's worth checking out. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe so you'll know when we upload our next recap, and let us know in the comments which movie you'd like us to cover next.